Hi there, English students. This is your professor, Michael Bloomberg, and I want to take this time to express my gratitude for the hard work you've been doing so far this semester. Essay 1 is now officially in the books. I have some review process to do on that. But we are looking this week at fixing common sentence problems, and what I have up here in front of me is the study guide, and my hope is that everything has been clear as you've been able to go through and review this study guide. Now, what I'm looking to do in this video is just make sure that the concepts as expressed in the study guide make sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to refer to the study guide as necessary, but on a separate Word document I am going to actually walk through some examples of the types of common sentence problems that you're going to find on the study guide. In particular, you're going to find three types of errors. You're going to find run-on sentences, which is at the top of page 1. And I'm just, didn't mean to highlight all that. I'm going to scroll down and let's see. Whoopsie. On page 2 is comma splices, and that's the second type of error that you'll discover. And on the bottom of page 2 over to the very last page of the study guide, you'll learn a little bit about what are called sentence fragments. So we're going to look closely at each one of those errors. So I'll refer back to the study guide as necessary, but what I thought I would do is just quickly go through some examples on a Word document. So let me go ahead and turn over to a Word document, and we'll work through these things together. Now, from the study guide, you will discover that a run-on sentence is when you have one independent clause that kind of bumps with another. They just kind of bump with no punctuation in between. They're kind of like the run-on the Energizer Bunny, in a sense, if you can remember those commercials. And by the way, this video is being made for both English 101 and 102. If you were in my English 101 class before and now you're in my 102, this study guide should look familiar to you, and some of these lesson points may sound a little familiar as well. So let's look at an example of a run-on where we get two independent clauses that are bumping with no form of punctuation. So here's our sample sentence for run-on, and I want to highlight it so you can see where I am on the Word document. So here it reads, Sally drove 200 miles to the Taylor Swift concert. She did not have a ticket to get into the arena. I do not recommend doing that if you're going to a concert. Make sure you have your ticket before you drive that far. So we have two independent clauses here that are bumping with no punctuation. So the first thing that you have to ask yourself is, where does one independent clause end and the next begin? Or where does one complete thought end and the next begin? Give you a chance to think about that for a second. All right, let's see if you came up with it. It's actually between concert and she. If you can identify this little split right here, well, not right there where I've sort of highlighted it, then you have won half the battle in fixing a run-on sentence. Because then what you have to do is go into the study guide, and I'm going to refer back to it, and right here, if I can highlight it, it's going to show you in the study guide the three ways to fix a run-on sentence. The first way says to insert a period. So let's go back. We know where the split is. It's between concert and she, so I can put a period in there, capitalize my S and she, and off to the races I go. There's nothing grammatically wrong with fixing it this way. However, if you always fix it this way, then you're going to run into those short, choppy sentences in your writing. The key to this lesson is to understand that you're trying to create variety in your sentence structures. So that's one way to fix it, but not the only way to fix it. Back to the study guide for just a minute. Number 2 says to insert a semicolon. So let's take a look there. We found our split, so we know again that the semicolon goes after concert. And again, a semicolon is the only punctuation mark that's strong enough to hold together two independent clauses on its own. However, I want you to listen because good writing has a cadence to it, what I like to call a seesaw quality. And what I mean by that is when you were a kid, did you ever ride what's called the teeter-totter or the seesaw where it kind of goes up and down, up and down? Good writing has that quality where it goes up and down, up and down. Nothing wrong with fixing it with the semicolon, but it's not going to really read any different than if you fixed it with the comma. So if you want, and there are 3 distinct groupings of words in the study guide that you'll want to pay super close attention to. But on the bottom of page 1 of the study guide are these words called conjunctive adverbs, and I'm going to highlight those so that you'll see them on your study guide. They're the bottom of page 1 and top of page 2. This is not a complete listing of conjunctive adverbs, but it does give you a listing of some of the more common ones. And I apologize, I'm flipping back and forth and not meaning to. So there are words like furthermore, moreover, in addition, on the other hand, otherwise. And so these can be used with semicolons. So we could add in a however. Don't forget your comma with your conjunctive adverb right here. You need the comma afterwards. It's a grammar rule, so don't forget to put that in there. We need to show contrast that despite the fact she drove 200 miles, she didn't have a ticket. So however would work. Let me look back at the list. Let me see. Well, really, however, would be the best choice for that particular example. It would not be good to put something like in addition. I mean, you could do that, but the problem is it's not really showing the contrast. I mean, if she drove 200 miles, it seems logical that she would have a ticket. So in that case, like a however would work better. You do not have to use a conjunctive adverb, so we don't always have to put this in. Again, we can just put the semicolon in, but if you want that up and down quality in your writing, you might consider that, however, conjunctive adverb, and it gives a nice little ring to it. Okay? Back to the study guide for a moment. We just looked at the first grouping of words. But we can also fix it with something called a comma and a fanboy. Fanboys are called coordinating conjunctions. It's a list like for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. There again are 3 distinct groupings of words on the study guide, so I want to make sure we focus on each one. So here's how it works. We put our comma in, but that comma by itself is not strong enough like the semicolon was to hold those structures together. So we need a fanboy that's going to show contrast. So let's try yet. Sally drove 200 miles to the Taylor Swift concert, yet she did not have a ticket to get into the arena. See how this particular conjunctive adverb, yet, it shows contrast, just like however as a conjunctive adverb did. Now, you can only use fanboys with commas, just like you can only use conjunctive adverbs with semicolons, so don't get your list confused. Notice I can't use so because it doesn't show the contrast. It doesn't really fit in very well to the context of the sentence. We could put a but in there and that would work just fine, but she did not have a ticket into the arena. The key to this is just making sure you're not picking any from the list and sticking it like a dart in the sentence. It has to make sense in the context. So yet, but would work just fine. And those are the 3 ways to fix a run-on. So if you're finding that you have a run-on sentence in your writing, I will likely identify it, but I will leave it up to you to go in and make the correction. And that's where the study guide is going to come into play. All right, so we looked at 3 ways to fix a run-on. Let's go into the study guide for just a second. We're going to go down to page 2 now and look at comma splices. Comma splices, as you'll know, are pretty much exactly as run-ons, except the writer tried to fix the run-on with a comma. That's interesting. So in our example, it says there is a big basketball game this weekend, comma, I hope Kentucky beats Tennessee. My apologies to you Tennessee fans. I am a Kentucky fan, so I had to put the sentence in to reflect my frame of mind. So you'll see the commas here. This is basically a run-on, except the writer knew that the comma needed to go there, but didn't go far enough in terms of completing what needs to be done. So to fix the comma splice, you're still fixing it the same three ways. We could keep the comma in and add an and. That's a fanboy, by the way. And I want to stress to you, too, let me do this just so you're clear. Fanboy is an acronym. That means that every letter in the word stands for your coordinating conjunction. Give me just a second. It's hard to talk and do this at the same time. So I want to make sure I don't mess up. There we go. So right here's where I'm focusing on the sheet. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. If you can remember the term fanboy, then you can remember your coordinating conjunctions. And all I did was pick an and, which fit in very well there. And I did that because we already had a comma in place. We just needed to go further with it. But if I want to fix it another way, I could take the comma out and again put the semicolon in. Semicolon, again, is the only one that can hold those two independent clauses together by itself. Could I add a conjunctive adverb? I absolutely could. I could add moreover, comma, I hope Kentucky beats Tennessee. Something that's going to show a little more connection this time. Or I can leave it be. Just leave the semicolon in there. Up to you. Or I could put a period in there. And that works pretty well because, look, I've got a proper pronoun I that starts the sentence. So I don't even have to capitalize that. It should already be capitalized. So please note that a comma splice is the same as a run-on. The only difference is the person just put a comma in. We have to either add a fanboy or change it entirely by taking the comma in the out and putting a period or a semicolon in. And we can add a conjunctive adverb if we choose to do so. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. I want to space this up just a little bit so that we can take a look at the last example. Okay. Here's the last example, and you're going to find this over to page 3 of the study guide. I'm sorry, bottom of page 2 and over to page 3. A sentence fragment. Sentence fragment is just an incomplete sentence, and we can signify it usually as an incomplete clause that's trying to be independent, but it's actually dependent. So here's our grouping of words, and I've identified them. I'm going to scroll down so maybe you can see them a little bit better. Let me do it this way. Well, if it'll let me. It's kind of being stubborn. There we go. Right down here at the bottom where I've highlighted, it's when, if, although, because, as, since, while, before. I need you to start red flagging those in your mind, because if you see those to start a sentence, you know it's got to be dependent, which means it's got to be a complex structure. Let me show you what I mean. Here's our sample sentence. Since everyone in my class passed the quiz, there will be no more quizzes this semester. This part right here is not a problem because it's independent. The problem is this dependent clause right here that's trying to stand alone with this period there. That's a dependent clause. It's a dependent thought. That is, it's depending on this information. So it cannot stand alone. So we got to join those clauses together. And this is my game changer right here. The word since. That changes everything because it makes this whole structure that I'm highlighting right here, it makes that whole structure dependent. Okay? If it was gone, which I will do that, then you've got two independent clauses. But, of course, we don't want it to be gone. We want to create a complex sentence. So the rule says to do that, we just add a comma in between the split. We take the period out, add a comma, and in doing so we have a complex structure. Now you may be saying to yourself, hey, we couldn't have a comma standalone before. That was because we had two independent clauses. This time we have a dependent to start followed by this independent. And as a result, we can join those together with a comma. Or if you want to flip the structure around, you could say there will be no more quizzes this semester since everyone in my class passed the quiz. And when we flip it around, this is called subordinate, a subordinate conjunction. You'll find that on your study guide. It's this word right here. Just notice in the second sample, keeping the same sentence basically, I just moved that to the middle. So writing could kind of be like a puzzle where you can move it around, and since I moved it to the middle, I don't need a comma because it's kind of functioning right here the way the comma would function. All right, so you have an assignment to complete this week. I'm going to make a quick follow-up video for the assignment, so you can check that out there. But hopefully this is helpful to you. Let me know if you're finding it helpful. I tried not to make the video too long, but hopefully this will help you in preparing for the assignment and understanding the lesson. I look forward to seeing your assignment this week, and I wish you the best of luck. We're in week 6. So hang in there. You guys are doing great. We're getting closer and closer to the midway point. Good luck this week, guys. Hopefully this video has been helpful. Take care. Bye-bye.